Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Thanks. Okay, this is going to be very unconventional. I feel honoured that I've been asked here today to facilitate this workshop. When it's about employment in life. Now, not employing people, but actually being free to be able to be employed to actually work. So I mean working as an individual rather than as employing carers. Okay, now, there's one thing I want to get really clear right from the start, and it's very, very important you know the difference. If you're working, right, direct payments don't provide you support where you're working. Access to work do. They supply support. There's a special grant they have, or special line of support they have called it's a support worker claim. And so if you need to work and you need assistance, then Access to Work provides that. I've never known any case of anybody working, a disabled person, who needs support, who's been refused access to work. I don't know if any of you have here. I don't know how many of you here actually are employed. I think I saw Rhian earlier on, and you work, do you? Yeah, we can borrow mine maybe. Oh, there's another one coming.
I was at a meeting quite some time ago up in Denby, at the men's shed in Denby. And some of the folks that were speaking there were autistic individuals speaking about employment, etc. Now, the major part was the guy getting interviewed. The guy getting interviewed needed his mum to be with him. She wasn't allowed in there to be with him.
For a job?
Yeah. Now, once he started talking to the individual about the job he was getting, etc., he was then sent for a job totally out, way beyond what he could possibly touch. He wanted to do mechanics and farm machinery.
I think that would be the Department of Work and Pensions, the job centre. Yeah, they've got a duty of care, and if you...
They were wrong. They sent him for a job working on computers, doing computer programming, and the manager at the place where he went to speak, right, turned around and said to him in his face, "What the bleeding hell is an idiot like you come into a job like this for?"
Oh, that's a little bit beyond my realm of...
If he'd have had a support person with him, right, that support person could have put that interviewer in the right place.
Well, I think you should take that issue up with the Department of Work and Pensions. But if he'd have got that job, then then if he needed support in that job, then that would be down to Access to Work to provide it. You couldn't claim for direct payments to actually have someone do that while you're being employed. I'll explain to you a little bit about direct payments, how they've assisted me. I was one of the people, and was interviewed for a little performance before. Right. I need a lot of care. I need to be hoisted out of bed in the morning and dressed, etc., and hoisted in, and I need somebody to empty my bag and such like. Now, I'm in receipt of direct payments, right? But I run a business as well, and I was running a business at the time when I received direct payments. At first, I thought, fantastic, I can employ my own carers to come in at the time which I want, which is great. However, I went the route which a lot of people have talked, have actually mentioned today is not a good route, I actually employ agencies for my care. The reason why I do that is because if they're no bloody good, they're out the door, I get the next one. Because I have to be up, I have to have a carer at 6 o'clock every morning. Get me out of bed so I'm ready to leave the house at 8 I can run my business. Right? And I have to have somebody, I have to be there at 10 o'clock at night to put me to bed so I can have a good night's sleep. I have to have continuity. If somebody's ill, the agency, they'll always have somebody to come in. They cost a bit more money. Now, initially there was a bone of contention I had with the local authorities. They would only pay so much an hour. Ridiculously, the agencies, they charge individuals more than what they charge the local authorities, even though it was the local authorities who were signing the direct payment check who were paying me. Once I got over that one, and I had to be a little bit cunning to get around it, it all worked fine. It's still in place now. Like for example, if I was a new claimant for direct payments, and I was paying a home care agency, they only pay the local authority only pay £14.25p an hour. But the agency would charge me £15.20p an hour. But they charge the local authorities £14. Why the difference in the two? I'm sure I'm a better payer than the local authorities because from my experience of doing business with the local authorities, they're terrible payers, or slow payers. So, but it's just a way of them getting more money, perhaps, I don't know. But getting back to what I was saying initially, the access to work, then when I go to work, I have a support worker. There's actually Alison, she's here today. Oh, you're there, right? And Alison and I get allocated so many hours. I'm quite fortunate. It's taken me years to negotiate it. I get 170 hours a month support when I'm running my business. When I'm not running my business, access to work won't pay. Like today, for example. Okay, today I can claim the expenses for my I have to lay out to pay Alison from Disability Wales. Or if but not everything which I do outside of my work I can get paid for. Like, if I have to go to the shops, if I have to do some social interaction with people, then I need the direct payments or used to be the Independent Living Fund. Now, of course, that's no longer running, but they're putting that over onto direct payments. Okay, they don't give me so many hours, you know, but that's a minor personal issue I've got going with them at the moment. But it's very, very important that you know the difference between access to work and direct payments if you're employed. And you know, I imagine, Wendy, can I grab you a second? If I was a magistrate, for example, because I know you're a magistrate, and I required, and I had to have a personal assistant, I would probably be able to claim the expenses from that from the magistrates, from the court, wouldn't I?
Possibly not. If you were a magistrate, you could claim loss of earnings, yes, and personal assistance.
And personal assistance.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's the same as if you've got children. It works, yeah. You know, PA costs.
But if I was employed by the court to be a recorder, then it would be access to work, wouldn't it? Who would be the thing? Yeah. So there is it's very important you understand that difference.
Yeah, there is a difference.
And but you know, I'm in a very fortunate position. I'm able to sort of, like, as you can see, I'm quite a communicative person, but not many people are, unfortunately. And it seems to be the people I've found who have problems dealing with direct payments and also access to work to a point are people who can't express themselves well, which is where advocacy comes in. And there's not that many advocates who know their way around the workplace, especially when dealing with access to work. And it's very easy. There's a, I've come across it quite often, very much a them and us attitude when dealing with, especially with Department of Work and Pensions. And I imagine it's probably the same with the local authorities, but I know it's the same with local authorities. There's not enough co-production going on. If people understood my life better, it would be a lot easier to get things done. But of course, then you're working to budgets. In my personal experience, dealing with direct payments, it's not always been plain sailing. And I've been a recipient for about 17 or 18 years. And twice, well, it's now 3 times now, during that 17 years, I've had an awful lot of problems, and I've had to one time I had to pull rank. And because I'm on the social services social services, I can't remember what panel I'm on, the National Partnership Board for Social Care. So I work with the Minister on various things. But I've actually had to pull rank, and to get people of high authority involved to sort out a stupid problem with my local authority. It shouldn't be the case. Now, I think, I don't like having to do that. Now, there's a lot of people, there's 99% of the population who can't do that or haven't got the facilities. And that's what concerns me most. It really does concern me. The lack of, is anybody here from a local authority, by the way? Right. Do you support any people who actually run their own businesses or in full-time employment?
Yeah, some people in full-time employment, and nobody that runs their own business, because I manage a lifespan.
Sorry. Right.
I didn't see it there.
Yeah, right. It was in your ear.
It was in my ear, not here. Yeah, okay. I'm a service manager for a lifespan disability service in North Wales, social services, and we employ a social worker who has access to work. So she's blind, and so she's supported for access to work. We provide direct payments to lots of people who are assessed under the Social Services Wellbeing Act, and if they wanted direct payments, then we facilitate that. I'm not aware that there's anybody who uses a direct payment to support them to work, because they would use access to work.
I think the thing is, when you're running your own business, it's not a 9-to-5 job.
No.
It's literally 24 hours, 7 days a week, because the phone can ring any time, and you might have to suddenly get up, get on the computer. And
we haven't been approached by anybody to have a direct payment to support them to run their own business.
Yeah. Because I was quite fortunate in the past with the ILF money I used to receive. That would help sort of fill some gaps, and of course now it's totally been changed, and you know, the hours are being cut back, and you know, it's been messed up with quite a lot, at least in my case. So I don't have that flexibility anymore, and I personally, I've given this an awful lot of thought, that 99% of the people who receive the direct payments need it for their own personal care. Well, you do need it for your own personal care to be able to survive and to be independent. But there's this gap, if you're employed, you get the access to work and you get so much support, but it's that transition between the two. Which, if you're running a business, you know, because it's going on all the time, I've been very, very fortunate. I've got a very supportive family. I've also got a flexible, pretty supportive PA, and you know, my work, my being able to run my own business, I'm actually at an age now, at a stage now where I can be a bit more flexible. What concerns me most is I'm 63 years old. In a year and a month's time, I'm going to be 65. Direct payments is going to stop. Yeah, because direct payments only goes up to the age of 65.
No, it doesn't.
No? Are you sure?
Absolutely certain.
Well, that's not what I was told by my local authority.
That's not. Are you provided with support from one particular team in your local authority?
Yeah, and I think
are they saying that they're going to? Are they going to?
I know Julie Tucker's name was on the door because she's from Newport.
Are they going to transfer you to a different team when you're 65?
I guess so. That's what happens.
And then they will, presumably, they'll reassess
Will it roll
you.
over? Will it still be called direct payments?
Yeah,
because
but so for example,
when I did some research on the internet,
no, you're entitled to that.
Yeah, I've learned something today. Thanks.
Because in my local authority, ours is a lifespan disability service. So from children to till you no longer. So somebody's about 100 years old. Yeah.
What a relief! That's really
so
worth knowing.
Their support would just continue.
Because I've got no intentions to stop working anyway. You see. So.
No, I don't see why that would.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Well, it's worth,
I think that's probably.
It's worth coming here today. It's brilliant. Now, it's we're all sort of like pretty mature people. There's no young people here who are thinking about actually going into business or doing their own thing. Because I'd love to be able to give them some sort of reassurance to make sure, tell them how things can actually happen. My business, right. Well, I actually sold my business about 6 years ago, it's 2012. It was supplying, believe it or not, but it's pretty diverse. We've got a couple of minutes. My professional occupation, I'm a ladies' handbag designer. I studied in the London College of Fashion in the 1970s, and I was very fortunate. I was able to live and work all over the world, and I was fully able-bodied then. I was diagnosed with MS in 1994, and my life changed dramatically. And the internet was breaking just then, and I'd always had this fantasy of having my own range of fashion accessories, which I could sell. And I set up one of the very first e-commerce websites in Wales, initially selling handbags and fashion accessories, and then it changed into pet accessories. Then it changed into wheelchair accessories when I became a wheelchair user. I designed a pair of some wheelchair gloves, and fortunately enough, they took on and sold all over the world. And built the business up, and it was very successful. And I flogged that in 2011. But I've kept my business going. I've kept my office, and I kept the warehouse for a while. Now I only employ disabled people, and we work in it's pretty difficult to pin down exactly what we do, but we do lots of we do some data entry. I do some guest speaking. I do some well, we all do different things. Lots of research. Lots of people come to us, even the university, when they haven't got time to do what they consider trivial things, like trawling the internet for hours looking for things. You know, we do it for them, and it keeps us all. We work for therapy. Well, I personally now work for therapeutic gain, not so much for financial gain. As long as my business keeps going, that's the most important thing for me, because I still have wages and rents and rates and blah, blah, blah to pay, and we don't get any funding for what we do, so we have to trade. And we trade in everything from, we go to auctions, I'm very interested in art. We buy paintings and antiques and buy and sell them and research them, and it's like a glorified hobby. It's fantastic. So that's basically what my business does. I'll give you a card later on, and we've got one of the guys I work is a disabled. It's mostly what I call disadvantaged disabled people I employ, people who never really had employment and they found it very difficult. I've got one young man, he's with Asperger's syndrome. He's been with me for about 3 years. And for the first couple of years, it was very difficult for him to get him away from his phone and his computer games and doodling. And we got some communication going. We talked about web code, computer coding, etc., etc. Then got him into websites, and he built the company website. I'll give you a card, you can see. And we've got a discussion forum on it. And in fact, this discussion forum, I'll give the card to everybody. I've got some cards here. It's mainly for, it's not only disabled people, anybody can write on it. But there's, we even get, we've even done research for example, there's a big thing in when the law changed beginning of last year for taxi drivers, wheelchairs and taxis. We did a big thing. We did a lot of, the BBC actually asked me initially to do some research. Then the big thing came out, and then, fortunately enough, DW did Disability Wales, did something. And so we got always did some discussion forums. People can write about what they want. We've got discussions about sex and relationships, discussions about diet, whatever people want to write on there. And it's mostly disabled people or their carers, supporters or friends or whatever. And it's quite interesting. Some of them are quite amusing, actually. So in this young chap I've got working with me, he manages all that and keeps it all together. And it's amazing, you know, like, you know, it shows what people are capable of. And I've got another project now I'm planning to do. A few months ago, last month, I was awarded a British Empire Medal in the Queen's Honours List for services to disabled people in Wales. And all of a sudden, my company's services are really in demand. And I'm running a project now with my staff to actually run it like we're setting up a new extension so they learn about the business side of things as well. And so I've got that project going in within the company. And
how do people come to work with you? Is it a group of people who's come together?
no, the local job centre, they're always hassling me for, you know, for yeah, because what I don't like is when they offer, one of the biggest problems if you're a disabled person and you go to get a job, they send you on training courses, they send you on this, and then this you do, and they keep sending you on these 8-week employment learning things, and I really don't agree with that, because so every employer I know, when somebody says they can get hold of somebody for 8 weeks, it's like free labour for them, and that's like going back to the slave trade, and I really don't agree with that. And you'll see on some of the discussion forums, you know, people feel used. You know, how would you like it if all of a sudden you were forced to do an 8-week work trial, or lose your benefit, or lose your income? You know, it's important.
What you've just been talking, sorry, can I...
Yeah, sure. Where are we in there?
Part of what you've just been mentioning now, it's, believe it or not, was being spoken about a couple of years ago, and it's in relation to a government-backed format. In my opinion, that was basically a bit like the youth training enterprises and so forth coming forward. But the way and the method they were looking at doing it is through getting people to work for tokens, shall we call it, or warrants, which could then be used to go to the cinema, etc., because they could score credits. And when they work for a period of time up to 50 hours, they then get a qualification which can go on their CV documents.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
But giving them a token for a cinema, it's like throwing a monkey a peanut, isn't it?
The part thing is, what you've just been saying about now is, part of the work they would have been doing is caring for people, right? These people come in, do a few hours, bang, care for people, do qualified care, beg your pardon? Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. It's just, the thing is, the government are giving money to organisations, I don't want to mention them, but some of them very high-profile organisations get a lot of government funding to set up and run these programmes. And to be quite honest, they, you know, like, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, to be quite honest, you know, like, because I'm getting rung up every 5 minutes by these people, wasting my time, more or less, do I want to take somebody on for 11 for 16? I was offered one for somebody for 16 weeks recently, which, you know, it's good. If they're right, you can give them a work opportunity. But if you haven't got the job coming up in 6 weeks' time, what's the point? But companies take advantage of that.
Can I ask any of the people? Hi. Can I ask any of the people that work for you? Do any of them have direct payments themselves, or access to work,
No,
but mainly
really
direct
funny,
payments?
because the two people I've got at the moment, I've only got 2 full-time people at the moment, disabled people. One of them's a girl with spina bifida, and she's actually bringing up a young son. She wants to remain as independent as possible, doesn't want to have any hassle with anybody. She's got a job, she earns money. I'm very considerate. If she needs to spend extra time with her son, as long as she tells me about it, that's cool with me. Because I know what's involved. I know what it's like being a disabled person in employment. So I think that makes a bit of difference, actually, being quite flexible. Yeah. It's, the other chap, Joe, who's the chap with Asperger's syndrome, he finishes work, goes home, sits on his computer all day, all night playing games. So, you know, he doesn't really need any more support than that. He's got a mother there who helps him, and he's quite happy with his life. Okay. Very happy with his life. Right. But anyway, that's getting away from things a little bit here. Now we've got quite a few people spread out over here. Right, we've got somebody else who needs a microphone here.
Can you take this for yourself?
Yeah, sure. But, yeah, you got it.
Skybound therapies, they might assist you with your employees.
Okay, if you take that. I just want to chat to this lady over here. Thanks. Hi.
You mentioned earlier on about doing the transition from your direct payments to your access to work to enable you to work. I finished a business degree about 6 years ago now, and I'd made plans from that to hopefully set up a non-for-profit organisation to help with support of disabled people and other people to be able to do things in life through my own experiences. And I set it all up, and I was advised quite a few years ago now, because of the amount of support care I needed, like yourself, that I wouldn't actually be able to work because I wouldn't get enough support when I was out of my own home environment. So I was just wondering, how did you find the transition, and where did you actually start finding out how you're going to do the support to move things on like you would like to do?
Right. Okay, going back to my own experiences, negotiation with access to work. I think when I first was a recipient of access to work, they allowed me it was 60 hours a month of support. I now get 170. And I've had to fight for it. And I've had to really, really, really spend time just dealing with that. It's cost me money. It's cost me, you know, if I spend 2 days arguing a toss with somebody from the Department of Work and Pensions, that's time when I'm not earning money. I'm not earning money. I'm not doing my things.
From your own business,
Right.
are you?
Dad, did you go to university or college to get a
I
degree?
went to Glyndor University in Wrexham.
Okay, now you probably had a lot of support from student services, did you?
Yes.
Right. Now this is funny. When you leave school, college, and then you're looking for a job, the support isn't there anymore, is it? Right. Funny enough, you've probably heard of the drill project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was going to do some research into this. This is a problem. It's a very big problem. It affects a lot of people. And actually research to come up with a feasible reason and argument to actually try and get that support, because there's a lot of disabled graduates out there who are not working for exactly the same reason. And it's a shame it didn't, unfortunately,
that's how I feel.
Didn't pass the draw criteria, unfortunately. But
I do things voluntary through Disability Wales and other organisations that I'm involved with.
yeah,
But I actually wanted to move things on so I'd be in initially a better financial position for myself, and then try and keep, because of my interest in what I do, and I've always been involved with the disability network system, that I wanted to sort of be able to improve that and make it work for me, because even though we do this as voluntary, I still see it in a lot of ways as work.
So if you wanted to set yourself up in business and do what you're doing to actually earn a living out of it, that's when Access to Work would come in to supply you with your support worker.
Because I've dealt with Access to Work for some of my PAs.
Yeah.
And they've had some help where they've needed maybe software to help me when they're helping with the computer or something like that, because they've had their own issues. But I was told I wouldn't get enough support for my actual needs when I'm out and about.
How did they know what your natural needs were?
Sorry?
How did they know what your needs were going to be?
Exactly. I couldn't seem to get from the point of trying to...
Right.
I have my...
Part of when I found the importance, the way to negotiate with people like that is to put together a case, a well-researched case of fact rather than fantasy or fiction, of exactly what you can doing and what you're doing. It's a little bit of homework, a little bit of studying for you. You might need to spend a couple of days to write down. It's almost like if you're starting a business, putting a business plan together. But it's not a business plan; it's your plan, and that's how you can formulate what your requirements are going to be, and that's the case you have to put across. And then it is a matter of negotiation, because it's more difficult now, because originally with Access to Work you'd have face-to-face interviews with an area person. Now you're doing it over with a computer. You know, if the computer says no, that's it. It's like dealing with a bank. So it's not so easy now, but I wish you well with it all. But I'm glad it's
keep going and see where we get.
Well, that's the whole thing about direct payments, is to make us more independent, right?
Yeah.
Now, direct payments, they'll give you the care you need to get prepared to be able to work, and that's when Access to Work step in to make sure you can work. So it's a balance between the two of them, and it's never perfect.
No, nothing ever is. But if you don't try something, then you're not going to know.
Yeah, that's right. But sometimes, like me, I just jumped in the deep end because, unfortunately, that's the sort of person I am. But
I'm a bit like that too. I do it first and worry about it afterwards.
And I like to challenge convention as well.
Oh, I've
Because
always
that's the only
done
way
that.
you're going to improve things and make things better. Anyway, that's good. Is anybody else here working at all? Actually employed in receipt? Is anybody receiving direct payments who's actually working? Okay. All right. Do you mind? It's all confidential here, what we're talking about today. So
that's fine. No. You mentioned about young people earlier on, about anybody who was working. I have a young son. Well, he's 33, with Down syndrome. Very talented photographer. He runs a business, as he calls it, of photographs, making his own cards. He's had a couple of exhibitions, quite successful, one or two. Managed to sell some of his photographs. we use his direct payments to access equipment. He's going through an assessment at the moment, or a new assessment as we were told, and we're worried that some of that funding will go because they don't see that it's relevant to, you know, for him. I mean, for him, it's not just photography, it's the ICT aspect of it, it's the safety on the internet, because he also runs a Facebook page to advertise his wares, as it were. I'm just interested in your...
Yeah, where you got that crossover point between where it is for his social benefit and his independence, or where that becomes a way of him earning money and being employed. And it's a very, very grey area. And I doubt the way that these local authorities are working at the moment, you know, I think that it'd be very... You've got to put across a good case to be able to make it continue that he's getting good direct payments. But there again, you can use this to your advantage. What an opportunity to actually, for him to be able to set up a little photography business, right? And make that he'd probably obviously have to work from home, wouldn't he, I would imagine, right? Even if he's working from home, but then when he's doing his photography work, then you might be able to contact the Department of Work and Pensions to get access to work, to provide his support when he's actually doing his putting things up on Facebook, and almost like that's his job. It's worth a case.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the they're not knowing at the moment where which way direct payments are going.
Have you had a recent assessment?
It's sort of ongoing at the moment, but whereas we thought it was going to take a short while, you know, the latest date we've had is the end of August, and it just seems to be going on. I mean, you mentioned, I think it's the same authority.
What local authority is that, as a matter of interest? Wrexham.
And
Yep.
I'm in the same point at the moment. They're talking about cutting half of my direct payment hours. And I've had to I've started the complaints procedure. I've had a similar thing that with my direct payments, because I'm in a new review and they want to cut my hours in half, basically. So I have actually gone to our complaint service and said I don't agree with it. I basically signed the new setup, and I've said all the way along I signed it in duress, but I only signed it in the principle so that my PAs were still covered for the employment side of things for my insurance. And I've been dealing with my employment solicitors also, so that they know where I'm up to. But I am still in this very much grey area, because I don't know when and if I'm going to lose my hours or when it's going to be dealt with. So
is there anybody from Wrexham Social Services here today?
I haven't known of anybody at the moment.
This is what we need. We need co-production. We need...
Yeah, they need to work together.
We need people for us all to work together on this.
They need to work together.
They seem to be in a state of limbo at the moment.
I have linked to the advocacy service with Dewis, because they have a office in Wrexham, and I've found that advocacy service has been very helpful. So I'd consider that with yourselves for your son. Yeah? And I can always pass on details. Yeah? Because I'm like the gentleman in the chair. I'm the one who will speak up and cause problems and whatever. I always have done, because I don't see myself as just being a disabled person who wants to be at home.
I'm a human being. I'm not a disabled person. We're all together. You know, we're all the same.
My disability is part of me, but it comes second. It's not what I want to do for my lifestyle.
Well, you see, now you've got involved in disability issues. Do you know what got me involved in disability issues? When I was became a disabled person, there was a benefit called Disability Working Allowance, which enabled me to afford to be able to get out and start my own little business up. And it was brilliant. It was perfect. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough to inspire me to get on with things. Then there was a change of government, and the new Labour came in. I thought, fantastic, you know, we've got a socially responsible government. First bloody thing they did was cut Disability Working Allowance. And I went to, my case went to tribunal because the case kept dropping. I went to tribunal, and it was in a place I couldn't get into in a wheelchair. And I thought, well, I can deal with this. It was a drizzly day. I had to go for an open window from the street.
Yeah, I do that as well.
And, you know, for me, it quite amuses me because I'm a writer. I write as well. There's another chapter for the book. But, you know, for Mrs. Smith from number 17A, how could she deal with that, you know? So that's what got me involved with disability issues. And I helped establish Newport Access Group, and then got involved with Disability Wales, and one thing led to another. And, you know, I've been involved in all those things, but at the same time as running my business as well. And, but yeah, it's when somebody touches you personally, isn't it? It's when you want to get more involved. And, you know, I've seen a lot of things change in the 25 years since 22 years since I've been involved. You know, things have progressed, but in the last 3 years, things have actually digressed to an extent. I think in terms of, since all this austerity, I think that's the umbrella, the name they use, which is totally unnecessary, because if local authorities co-produce better, then I think the costs would be a lot lower. I'll give you an example, by the way. 2 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and the amount of personal care she was giving me at home, the carers would come in for an hour every morning, and then she would have to spend another half an hour doing lots of personal stuff. So I contacted my social worker that I needed more care. So she came up, spent an hour with me, and I explained it all. I thought I'd explained it all. Then she came back, and 2 days later, for another hour, to do risk assessments and things. Then she came back, then somebody came for another hour to do a financial review. Bear in mind, I was already receiving care, but I wanted extra. I wanted more hours on my direct payments, and over the course of a month, I had 5 visits. 2 of those visits were cancelled at the last minute. Now, I employ people. Now, those people I employ, if I'm not there, they can't work. And if things change, it's not a simple thing. They've got their own structure around them. Now, for them to give me an extra half an hour a day, right? It probably costs them. I actually sat down. I spent half a day one day working out 4,300 quid in time. Because each time they came up, it was an hour. An hour call, half an hour there, half an hour back, 2 hours. So they look at four visits, and then you've got to look at down the line how it came up to get an extra half hour. Now, I was already a recipient. All they had to do, if they knew me, if they'd have bothered to sort of find out about me a bit more, you know, there would have been a matter, I would have thought, of just signing something, because they okayed it. You know, like, how much money's wasted? And then they come around and tell you you can't have a new handle on the wall to help you support yourself because there's not enough money. But they'll spend money, they'll waste money like that. Yeah. And there's people who need social workers who are always saying, oh, there's not enough time, I can't do this, can't do that. But they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, in my opinion. But there again, I'm that sort of person. I come from running market stalls in London and things, and if there's nothing good, you just out them and get somebody else in who does. You can't do that with staff these days. How am I doing for time, by the way? I'm not being kicked out, am I? No, oh, sorry. All right, sorry, I saw something going on. Yeah, I've got to take some notes because at the end of this I've got to talk about something. So, right, key points from this little discussion we've had is, in my opinion, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, is the difference in direct payments and access to work, and who provides what and for what purposes. There's Rhian. Are we through now? Oh, thank God for that. We're so like us. We suddenly decide, I don't know. Okay, I've got to account for all this afterwards, and we got so far a blank piece of paper. So, yeah, I know, one of them. So okay, we've got direct payments on one side, access to work on the other side. Then we talked about so can you get me a thing of water? Sorry, I've just got to drink something very quickly. I was talking all day yesterday, and I'm amazed I've got a voice. Right. We then talked about. I have to remind myself now what we talked about. I'm hoping I'm after some sort of support here. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, direct payments. By being in receipt of direct payments, it gets you ready with the right care, home care support, personal support that you're able to work. But there is a difference between the two. You know, direct payments won't pay for my access to my support when I'm at work. You know, but they'll cover my support when I'm at home and for my personal needs. Is anybody here having any problems with the demise of the Independent Living Fund? No. Did you receive assistance from
I did receive the Independent Living Fund, and then it went to the Welsh grant one instead.
Yeah, so, Independent Living Grant.
And that's basically the hours they're talking about I'm losing, because it's half of my support package at the moment. And whenever I've spoke to anybody about trying to do this so I could earn and do a living from anything that I want to do, because I used to work before I was so wheelchair bound. I've always had a wheelchair, but as I became more disabled and I had to go to a powered version and have more support, I got to the point that they turned around and said because of the amount of support I needed, I wouldn't be able to work any longer. And that's where I've come to. I've done the things like the training courses, and like I said, I went to university, I got my business degree. I wanted to move things on because that initially came about because I'd done a project for the Millennium Lottery Award, and I wanted to move on what we found out from that into what I was hoping to be a support business for other people who wanted to move things on, and just because they were disabled didn't think that they couldn't do it. And I've not been able to move it from that point except for being as a volunteer involved in it, because I was always...
So there was nothing forthcoming from direct payments to support your and Independent Living Grant. We couldn't sustain it because it would be then the access to work who would be assisting you on that. So I think we know we know the difference between the two now. So at least we've established that. I like to think that people understand that. What I was hoping there'd be more disabled people here who actually are employed, because that we could get some sort of interaction there and some experience and real life experience. But I'm a great believer in independence as being able to literally do what you want. And most people want to work. And there's one thing that a lot of disabled people are denied is that right to work. You know, I've got 5 minutes, right. Okay, we're going to work on this board a second with Alison. So we've got direct payments, and then we've got access to work. So we know put a line between an arrow between the two. A line down, yeah, so we know the difference. Right, then can you put an arrow from direct payments just touching that centre line? Yeah, just an arrow. That's it. And then the arrow going upwards from DP up to access to work. Okay, because that'll give me a fund for what I'm talking about. Okay, now listen, I've got a couple of minutes. Has anybody got any questions at all? Right.
With the system, well, the way things are going at the moment, as we all are very much aware about the Brexit and all of that sort of trash, in my opinion, we are in a state of nobody really knowing where the heck anything's going. So my question to you might be, especially with like universal credit being rolled out, this is likely to majorly affect the amount people can receive on these payments. And as the other chap was talking about the equipment for his son and that, right, my thoughts are, to my knowledge, there was a grant format set up to enable people to buy equipment such as a toolbox and tools to go out to work, to go out and do a job. You could get a grant for that. I don't know whether that's still on course.
If it's equipment he needs for his work, Access to Work won't finance that unless it's something it has to be adapted for him to be able to use. Like, for example, a camera, because you say he takes photographs, yeah? The camera, no. But if he needed a special holder to hold that camera in a certain way, that's when Access to Work would come in to supply that equipment. And they have their own occupational therapists who will come around and do the assessment to find out what exactly adaptations are needed. But they won't buy the camera. Yeah. Now, the grants you're talking about for that equipment, that is neither direct payments nor Access to Work. That's coming from a different source entirely. And I think you'll probably find that it's not a European-funded grant. I think that's a British government grant from the Department of Work and Pensions. It's a completely different side, but I'm not qualified enough to be able to give you accurate information.
What I'm referring to there is that nobody really knows where the heck anything's going.
Well, I know that.
The way all the benefits are at the moment, although we've got these elements of rights at the moment, they're basically going to be gone in about a year and a half to 2 years' time.
I don't know.
England will be different.
I personally don't look at the negative. I always look at the positive.
Well, we've got to look at the negatives because part of what I see in the way things are moving is that all these changes being made because government lost so many cases in the European Court of Human Rights, yeah, especially in relation to things like bedroom tax, etc. And any appeals that have gone forward to that stage, right, the government have lost. So that's why they're saying, hey, enough of that, we want to keep the money.
Oh, yeah, we're in total agreement there. Anyway, it looks like our time's up now, and, you know, like everybody's coming in, so brilliant. Thanks a lot. I better take this off and...
if I can call you all to order. So I know it's a great shame to have to break into all these very animated conversations, but we're on the home stretch now. So it's been really interesting. I've went around all the workshops and really interesting the different perspectives that were coming out and the different aspects around direct payments. So I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback. So if we start with in the order in which they were listed, Trevor, are you happy to come forward? And Trevor's workshop was actually being streamed online, so you had some comments. You had some comments. Thank you, Trevor.
Well, first of all, I was a bit disappointed in a way. I was hoping there'd be more disabled people here who were either in employment or thinking about getting into employment. Instead of that, there was myself and two or three others. And but anyway, the main thing I wanted to get across is that the difference between direct payments and access to work. Direct payments is for your personal care. When you're at home or when you're doing to allow you to have a life and a bit of independence. But when you're at work and when you're working, it's access to work who provide you with a support worker. It's how it is, unfortunately. But and if it's handled correctly, it can be very, very effective. I wanted to emphasise in my own personal case, it was brilliant. I used my direct payments to make sure I had the correct home care, so I was able to get up in time, etc., etc., to be able to get to be for my support worker, who was paid by Access to Work, to come and pick me up every morning at the right time and get me to work. And if I was had appointments or trade shows or whatever, get out and about. Now, because my particular business was a little bit different. Not different, but I was doing trade shows. Sometimes I had to get up at 5 in the morning and be up to open up a trade show to be at a trade show at 10 o'clock in the morning up in the Midlands somewhere. You know, because I was employing first carers to come in and do that on time, but I soon learned that it's a lot safer. It was safer for me, and I'm an exception, to employ agencies, because you pay a bit extra, but you're guaranteed to get somebody there at 5 in the morning. Because I need 2 carers every morning and 2 carers every night, and sometimes I wouldn't get home till 11 at night, I needed the flexibility to be able to do that, which the agencies could provide. I also mentioned that there is a problem, is because most local authorities will only pay for your home care. I think at the going rate at the moment is £14.50 an hour, the local authorities allow, but the actual care agencies charge £15.75 an hour. So you need to have a bit of flexibility to negotiate with your direct payment department, which is now handled by the local authorities, to make sure you get that across. But anyway, there's a nice bit of interaction, a few questions, and we diversed a little bit, and it was quite interesting. We had a nice contribution there about transitions from education to employment, and how direct payments can have failed, if you like, because I think in your case they did have failed, haven't they, to an extent, and how things could be improved. But everything in life I've found personally is down to negotiation, and a lot of it is not to accept what you're given, to be able to sort of like put your case forward. And it's shown how necessary it is for us all to co-produce with each other, the local authorities, ourselves, to be able to sort of like make sure everybody understands each other's lives, and to be able to sort of get everything achieved. Anyway, that was, I hope that sums it up.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Thank you. I think, you know, direct payments as, you know, part of the story of enabling people to work, whether that's in kind of paid employment or, you know, sort of self-employment. I think it's a really important issue, particularly at the moment, because Welsh Government have recently published their employability plan, and they're looking at how they can tackle the huge disability employment gap, which is in Wales is around 36%. So you know, basically, if you're a disabled person, you're sort of 2/3 more likely not to be in a job as opposed to being in a job. So direct payments can be part of the story of and the picture of enabling, you know, more disabled people to you know, be in a work-ready position to be able to pursue their you know, their career and professional goals. So thank you, Trevor. So our next workshop is Ruth Chamberlain from the Older People's Commissioner. Ruth's over there. Ruth, would you like the microphone to come to you? Yes, it's on its way.
Right, in our workshop we were focusing on older people, and we included carers as well in our discussion. I did a short overview of the research, because that's been my background, and there is a real need for continued research on direct payments, particularly in relation to older people and carers, because the research so far hasn't shown a benefit of direct payments to older people, and that's not to say there isn't a benefit. There clearly can be, and we need to look at the evidence to show that. I mean, in terms of our discussion, a lot of the familiar issues came up in terms of the barriers that older people can face, in, you know, the gatekeeping, the bureaucracy, the slow timescales. There was a real feeling that those things could be exacerbated if you're older, you're lacking in energy, or you have dementia. But there were particular issues, for example, around information. So much of our information now is digital, and whilst one can't make stereotyped assumptions about older people, there's no doubt that they're more amongst the excluded generation there. And the issues that came up earlier around the provider market, it can be really difficult for people to get the personal assistance they need, particularly, again, people who are knowledgeable and experienced around dementia. And there's still that focus on task-based care, that for older people it equals personal care, whereas direct payments can be for so many more diverse things than that in relation to equipment, as was mentioned earlier, around respite. Up direct payments is around availability of suitable persons, but we realise there's someone in the room who provides a suitable. There are different issues for different generations. You'll get the people saying, well, I've never claimed anything, and maybe people in more gendered roles where the person had never managed to counsel money and is just completely put off by that altogether, and maybe not given the range of other options to support them. So it's really that empathy with older people, thinking through what will help make it work for them, how can we do that, is really, really important. And in terms of solutions to that, we felt that things like a centralised knowledge hub, that it's important to, you know, make them work for older people, and work in partnership with very relevant agencies like health, like memory clinics, where other professionals can really help support this, so that it's much more of a network of support and information, and in raising awareness, obviously, amongst those professional groups about the potential benefits. And another just quick other thing that was mentioned around residential care is that housing. Why aren't we thinking about housing there for later life? Residential care options that we have are very unattractive to a lot of people. And if people have a group of friends, group of like-minded people where they could pool a budget for residential care, is the housing market going to respond to that kind of thing that people might want? So it's quite a multifaceted issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Very succinct. And I think, we were particularly pleased to be able to put on a workshop around direct payments and older people, because there has often been this myth older people could never manage direct payments, and I think the work that you've done, and I know you've got your research report, which is on the table, please help yourself on the way out, has helped to explode that myth. So thank you very much, Ruth, and your workshop. Okay, so moving on now to the other end of the spectrum.
Do I have to have a microphone?
You need a microphone so that everyone can hear, but you can choose. Yeah.
And they know. Okay. Yeah, it was a really lovely session with some delightful people, and really. My background and really why I'm here is because we've been given a small amount of money in the forum by the Welsh Government. Again, this is the second time we've had it, to go out and talk to groups of carers where they're at, wherever they are, in a pub or in a meeting room or wherever, to talk about what their rights are under the new legislation, and in particular to recommend the use of direct payments. And in doing that in the last year and a half, I've met the most innovative and creative people I think I've met in my life. And I suppose that's one of the things I wanted to celebrate today. There are barriers. Of course there are barriers. We were talking about the fact that sometimes social workers or representatives, without meaning to, because I don't think there's malice aforethought, occasionally mislead people or don't tell people enough to let them make decisions. But when people are given the opportunity to work together, to think creatively about the possibilities for their sons or daughters, it's amazing what we've actually been able to achieve in Wales. It's a small country, and we are still, in many respects, a community. Not as resilient as we might be, but we are a community. And when those qualities are actually tapped into, it's surprising what families can do. We saw an example of Luciana Pivano, who actually has created a horse project for her daughter, who was really very difficult in terms of managing behaviour. She had a whole range of disabilities, and if she was upset, she would self-harm. She now goes to this project. It's now a company. We have other families joining this, and she did this through direct payments, not without a struggle, but she did it. There are examples all over Wales, and Care to Cooperate was lovely this morning talking about the things that they can do. And we know of some brilliant examples of where things are happening, and believe me, they don't have to cost a lot of money. I think the real issue for us has been that there isn't a cost-neutral aspect of this, but we have families working together, managing productive day opportunities for their sons and daughters, which actually save the local authorities money. And where the local authorities have been open to this, and I could sit here and name the really good authorities, and can I say that most of them are rural? And I think it's maybe where rural communities have got used to doing things and getting on with it. And where they have, the spirit of creative enterprise is really alive and well. And we had a super time in our workshop, and I would like to say I hope it'll continue. And I know it will, because Wales is the place for creative spirits, and we will do more of this. We're at the beginning of a journey. There's a lot more to do, and I know we can do it, and we just need to get on with it. Thank you.
Thank thank you, Pauline, passionate and energetic as ever, and also I think reminding us of the kind of the rural aspect, you know, and how direct payments can be used in that way. Okay, so last but not least, the final workshop was the discussion forum, and I think my colleague Jodie Mellor is going to feed back. Thank you. Thanks, Jodie.
So we talked about the joys and the challenges of direct payments, and we had a fantastic discussion, but I'll keep it very short because I don't want to repeat anything. So the joys were in terms of flexibility, giving families more support, employing who you want to employ, including family members, giving families more control and power, and allows you to be an independent person. In terms of the challenges, the fact that it's different across all local authorities in terms of the interpretation, difficult financial management like paying HMRC, the difficulty of having to apply for direct payment and then getting turned away, reduced choice in relation to the prepayment cards that Luke Clements was talking about, and then the lack of resources in local authorities, a lack of awareness also in local authorities with their professionals, and also in rural locations, such as where we are now, finding suitable PA is very, very difficult. And then moving forward, going to continue to challenge the system, collective campaigning, and asking constantly for more support and advice.
Was that collective campaigning that you see? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that's and that's been one of the joys of today. We've been here together, and I think we've kind of hopefully fired each other up and inspired each other to tackle some of the issues that we've identified. I just want to check before kind of summarising. Is there any burning points or issues anyone would like to raise, particularly hearing from people who perhaps haven't had a chance to say anything yet, but any comments anyone would like to throw in? Oh yeah, you've got a hand over there.
I was just very interested by what you said there in terms of collective campaigning and whether we can make something much more tangible come out of this in terms of working together and really crystallising the messages that we want and where we're going to put them.
All right, thanks, Ruth. Is that the sense in the room? That collective working together to tackle? Yeah, I'm seeing nods, I'm seeing yeah. Great. I know, even though it's the end of the day. And I think you've got everything together. There's something called rain. Heaven's open. Okay, thanks for that, Ruth. Any other burning comments or points? Okay, so, well, thanks for them. Thanks for keeping your attention. So, I think the final bit is that it's me saying things about the way forward. But I think, to be honest, you've all covered, most of that throughout the day and in the workshops. But just a kind of a couple of thoughts. In terms of the way forward, I do think still, the sky's the limit for direct payments. We've been on a bit of a slow burn in Wales, but the only way is up. And we've got the legal framework there with the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act. Again, as we've heard throughout the day, there's some perhaps issues about the way it's interpreted, the way it's understood, some perhaps more robust action that perhaps could be taken, maybe by Welsh Government around things like, the minimum rate on direct payment, or perhaps clearer instruction to local authorities, but the building blocks are there. I think we've also heard of the wide variety of ways in which direct payments are being used. I guess mostly people think about using a direct payment to employ a personal assistant, but I think throughout today, we've heard of all sorts of things. We've heard about people using their direct payment to purchase equipment. I think one of the workshops was saying how somebody used it to purchase the Hive heating system so that that individual could control their heating from their own telephone and that, mobile phone. That made a big difference to them. We've heard about using direct payments for respite or short breaks. We've heard about other kinds of well-being. One workshop, a carer got a direct payment to have, be able to purchase things like, massage and other kind of things that would help relieve stress. And also we've heard quite a bit today about pooling direct payments. I think that's very much something to watch, where people can, get together, like-minded people interested in similar things, or families getting together, pooling direct payments and kind of maximising use of resources. And there's also a wide range in which direct payments are being supported and people who receive direct payments are being assisted. Again, what we traditionally think is the direct payment support scheme, and we heard about the work that Dewis does. But also now the emerging co-ops, a different approach to supporting people. We heard about training services that could be offered, peer support, and also advocacy. So quite a lot of creativity going on around Wales, and I think we need to build on that. I think at the moment it's a very kind of low level, feels like it's at quite a low level, bubbling away, but we need to kind of, build the tempo a bit. I'm mixing metaphors there, but it's a bit late in the day. So I suppose one note of caution, though, and I picked it up during the day, but also in one of the workshops. We need to be careful around the idea that direct payments is a way of saving money. I think it's good to look at it as an effective use of resources, but it should never be about care or support on the cheap. It has to be about people, living their lives, achieving their goals, living independently, and whatever resource is needed for that. Needs to be provided. So in terms of where next, so Welsh, as we heard earlier on, Welsh Government have their PIE group, which is, I can't remember what that stands for, Practice and Information Exchange? Okay, So the next meeting's in September. We've had, it's going to be, the findings and learning from this is going to be on the agenda, so there's a good opportunity there for influence and taking forward some of the issues raised. We've had an offer from the Minister, Rhian Davies, for a meeting to, again, talk about these issues, so another opportunity for influence. DW, all the presentations from today will be available online. You can go onto our YouTube page to see the presentations again, and we can circulate the workshop presentations as well. And of course, we're in the final stages of the Citizen Directed Co-operatives project, but there'll be a toolkit and a final event to share the learning, which will be later on in the year. So kind of watch the space for that. So lots for us all to ponder, but I think certainly the takeaway issue today is around how we can generate more of a campaign around direct payments and really get that energy going to get more people understanding what direct payments is and how they can access it and how they can use them effectively. Okay, so in the final moments, just to remind you, if you haven't already done so, I'd be really grateful if you could fill in your evaluation forms and your equality monitoring forms. That would be much appreciated. And I'd like to end with some thank yous and huge votes of appreciation to all our speakers this morning, who really set the scene for us, to UCAN Theatre Productions for their very powerful and emotive performance, and also to all our workshop leaders this afternoon, and thank you to all of them for the feedback as well. I'd also like to thank all the access and technical support we've had today from a wide range of people around the room. This was a bit of a first for us doing live streaming, and seems to have come off, so thank you for that. But also the BSL and PAL and Taipan Sound Solutions. Big thank you to all the staff at Kevin Lee. They've been so hospitable, nothing's been too much trouble. So thank you very much for that. And I know they're very keen to have feedback on the venue and how they can improve it. So anything you'd like to add about that would be very warmly welcomed. I'd also like to thank from the bottom of my heart the staff team at DW. This has been a huge event to organise, and we're a small team, but everyone has really played their part, both in the run-up to today and today. I think people have been kind of buzzing around all over the place. So big thanks to Miranda and Paula, to Ruth, Jodie and Viv. Diolch o galon. Thank you very much. And then finally to our funders, Big Lottery Wales, who have enabled this event to take place. And thank you all so much for your participation and attention today, for your contributions, for your energy and your enthusiasm. And I hope that will speed you on your way back to wherever you're going. If you've got an umbrella, I think you're going to need it. But have a safe journey home, everybody, and hope to see you all again in the not too distant future. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much.